You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
We are continuing our conversation in the Set Apart to Serve series. Joining us today, the Reverend Justin Panzer. He's president of the Kansas District of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. President Panzer, thanks for joining us today on The Coffee Hour.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you and your listeners.
We are delighted that you are part of the Set Apart to Serve series with us here on The Coffee Hour and learning about your ministry and how God has given you to serve in parishes and now in the Kansas District as district president. Tell us a little bit about the story of God bringing you into the office of holy ministry. When did you begin thinking about serving as a pastor? Was it in childhood or later?
It's really both. And my story is not unique to other people that serve in church work. As a senior in high school, I was asked by my home pastor to consider becoming a pastor. And I looked at him and I said, "You have the wrong." So I proceeded on to college. I actually have a Bachelor of Science in Education from the University of Kansas with a pre-physical therapy emphasis. And so I was traveling down the physical therapy road. Once I concluded my bachelor's degree at that time, you needed a master's degree. So I had applied to all of, local schools for physical therapy and had moved back home in between time because, things such as student loans need to be paid and things like that. And I worked a construction job that I had always worked in the summers. So when the applications came around and I had done interviews and those application processes came back, I was not accepted to any therapy school, which was, I guess, quite a shock. I had very good grades, I had the necessary test scores and kind of floored by that. And so I was in the process of applying again. And at that time, I was asked by another pastor to consider becoming a pastor again. And so I applied to Concordia Seminary, St. Louis, and I also applied to Concordia SU. I'm very close to being teacher certified, so I thought I would finish a teacher certification, if possibly there, and then maybe even go into a master's of administration. And so when applications were put in and then applications came due, I was not accepted to any of the physical therapy schools again. However, I was accepted to both Seward and to St. Louis, and I decided that I like to teach, and so I thought I could best do that pastor. So I enrolled at Concordia Seminary, St. Louis. So kind of, I guess I'd say probably not an unusual story, but definitely a story of God closing doors and opening doors at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those stories are always interesting, how we sometimes think we know what we want to do and God's like, nope, I think you're going to do this instead. That's just a very, very cool story. Along the way, while you were going through all of this discernment of what your path was going to be, now looking back on that, what do you think the characteristics that these pastors saw that they were encouraging you to pursue pastoral ministry, even though you weren't quite sure if that was what was right for you?
Yeah, good question. I would say this. I mean, we were always a family that was regularly in church. We were a family that was regularly in nightly devotions and in prayers. I would say, my grandparents played a huge role in me and my life. And then my mother did as well. When I was in fifth grade, I saw my father baptized and, come to faith, and how that changed his life. So that had a big impact as well. But early on, it was my mother and then both parents as I grew in life. Kind of an interesting anecdote here. One of my uncles, maybe you call it a favorite uncle, when he knew what I was going through in terms of, not being admitted to physical therapy school and being admitted to the seminary and up to Seward, he jokingly said that if nobody else wants you, God can always use you.
He's not wrong.
So you really had encouragement from your pastors and from other people along the way, family members it sounded like as well. and the things that they shared with you were helpful, even though it wasn't clear to you until later, until applying for several different options, and that really helped clarify that direction for you.
It did. And
Thinking
I would
through,
say, just to say something real quick along that too, I have absolutely no Lutheran background as far as education goes. So I was not brought up in a Lutheran school system, did not attend a Concordia. The only Concordia I've attended is Concordia Seminary, St. Louis. I actually attended, as I said before, the University of Kansas. And so campus ministry was very active there. My campus ministry pastor had a big influence on me as well. And in the time that I was at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, believe it or not, there were 7 of us who actually entered the seminary over a 2 to 3 year period.
Whoa.
that really says that speaks volumes about the importance of campus ministry and how campus ministry makes an impact on young people, particularly in that stage of life, and that college age, young adult years as well. How significant that is.
It really is. And, I think their stories might mirror mine too. We were all headed down different educational tracks, and, for whatever reason, the Lord knows. And here we are as pastors.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the key things that those significant people in your life did that you think are valuable for us to consider when encouraging young people today? What are the things that they were saying or doing? What do we need to be doing today in terms of encouraging young people to consider church work vocations?
Yeah, I think a couple of things kind of come to my mind. First of all, our young people, may put the pastor or the church worker on such a high pedestal that they think that they could never do that. They could never get in front of people and talk. They could never teach or preach as good as what they heard. And so I think that, we need to get in front of that. I think we need to do the exact opposite and encourage them. If we do see that those youth have that habitus about them, we need to encourage them to contemplate church work vocations and careers. We need to invite them, for further conversation with the church worker, because you never know. It just could be a simple invitation of, you should consider this, and that seed is planted, and who knows where God's going to use it.
Why is it so important to be having these conversations? What is that need that you see, maybe especially in the Kansas District, for raising up new church workers?
Yeah, so I think I'd say a couple things here. We've heard the stories, and we know that the numbers crunch is here in terms of, low recruitment numbers. And so the Set Apart to Serve recruitment initiative is very timely. It is very valuable. It is something we've been promoting in the Kansas District. Just from a personal standpoint, as a district president, between the 1st of January until the end of the August, I have 8 pastors in Kansas that have already told me that they're retiring. Ooh. So, that's just a numbers crunch. We want our pulpits filled. We want the people of God served with word and sacrament ministry. And so, it is, I guess you'd say, uncharted waters. We're doing creative things in terms of how to fill pulpits with pastors so that the people are served. But I would say secondly, and most importantly, is that, again, we need to go back to just the power of the personal invitation. The studies tell us that 80% of people will come to our churches for the very first time when they've been personally invited by someone else. And so whether it's a pastor or a teacher or a DCE, we need to make those efforts to personally invite these kids to church work vocations, something to consider for them as they are in high school, maybe when they're even in college and struggling to find a major. And we also need to, especially if they're in high school still, maybe on a summer break, if they are interested, have them job shadow. Have them shadow the teacher in the classroom, have them shadow the pastor on a homebound visit, maybe have them lead or do something like that when the DCE is hosting some type of a youth event.
Shadowing sounds like a great way to also build a culture that embraces raising up future church workers, a partnership that really, and a culture that embraces looking to the future and raising up church workers. And I want to talk more about that in just a moment. You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
At Concordia University, Wisconsin, we believe you were created for a reason: to use your God-given gifts to help others, to live a life of self-sacrifice in a me-first world, to live a life that's uncommon. Whether you're taking one of 50-plus online programs or learning with us in person on the shores of Lake Michigan, you'll be equipped to make an uncommon impact. Learn more at cuw.edu. Concordia University, Wisconsin. Live uncommon.
Welcome back to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
We are continuing our conversation in the Set Apart to Serve series. Our guest today, the Reverend Justin Panzer. He's president of the Kansas District of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. And before we went to break, you were talking about some of the things that you think are important for us to do in congregations, in schools, and other settings to raise up church workers for the future. One of those was shadowing. What are some other things that we might be doing that will help develop a culture within our congregations, within our schools, that embraces raising up future church workers?
Yeah, great question. I would say this: don't let your confirmands do catechesis alone. And so, I kind of grew up in the old confirmation model where the parents, quote unquote, dump the child off for a Saturday morning in the pastor's office for 2 to 3 hours of catechesis. Obviously, a lot of churches have gone to the midweek model. And when I did my vicarage, I had a wonderful vicarage congregation, a wonderful vicarage pastor. And he had at least one parent or guardian attend the confirmation class with the child. And so obviously I liked that idea. I saw the idea work, and I stole that idea from him for my ministry. And when I did, introduce it, there was, audible groaning, audible moaning, pushback, but it was the parents eventually jumped on board. And it did cultivate a culture not only within the class itself, that the parents, were free to ask questions, the children were free to ask questions, but also from there, it took what was learned back into the home. And so this was a great way for me to model devotions in front of the parents and to promote sound doctrine within the home, have it cultivated there, and then have it further nurtured within the church. Other congregations I know around the Kansas District, and I'm sure around our Synod, not only employ that model, but they also use extra mentors as just other, members of the congregation that, are good with the youth, are good mentors, and they, they're there to assist the youth with questions. They're there to assist the youth with, other, how should I say this, any other matters in life. That mentor is assigned to that person, and they know that they can go to them and ask questions and receive good feedback.
Mm-hmm. How does all of that benefit the congregation? I mean, as we're talking about building up church workers, but in addition, just building up a healthier congregation for these children to grow up in.
It is. I think for one, it gets rid of the divide between the old versus young. We are the church together. We have to get rid of the whole concept that, I don't become a member of the church at confirmation. I'm a member of the church at my baptism. And something that we've been focusing on this triennium is the whole concept of living as the baptized, part of the royal priesthood, right from 1 Peter chapter 2. And so, as we are the royal priesthood, we are that holy nation. We are the chosen possession. And that cultivates that right from the beginning, that I am the church right now. And as part of that royal priesthood, as part of that body of Christ, we are here as Christ's people to serve him.
Tell us more about what is going on in the Kansas District and how you've made it a priority to form or to raise up and form church workers for the future.
Yeah. So like I said, we've got the triennial emphasis now of living as the baptized. I think that's been well received. I think it's a matter too of how do you educate people on what it means to be a royal priest of Christ. And if I was to walk back into my former parish and say, you, John Smith, are a royal priest of Christ, how would that be received? So I would say, first of all, I just did not teach this very well when I was a parish pastor. And so, how can I learn from that? How can we encourage our pastors and our people to learn from that? Just this language of priesthood from the Holy Scriptures and how that builds within the congregations. I would say another thing that we are making a priority emphasis on is campus ministry. Obviously, I mentioned that at the beginning of the interview here, but we have a campus ministry coordinator, Reverend Mark Boxman at Trinity Salina. And Trinity Salina is also the set apart just pilot congregation for campus ministry as part of this initiative. So something that, Pastor Boxman is promoting, is gathering his senior kids and their families, not in April, right before a May graduation, but he's gathering them already right now in October and November. And as they contemplate, where they will go to school, as they contemplate what will their major be, Pastor Boxman has also put it before us, contemplate, where are you going to go to church as well? And so, it's not a question that we overlook, but it's, in the busyness of families and how time quickly passes that senior year, where will you go to church? And so, something I did in my own ministry was made it a point to reach out to the families that I was sharing their contact information with the local campus pastor. And then I shared the campus information also with them. And then if they were especially local and could make the trip, within a couple of hours, I would point blank tell the family, I do not want to see you here this Sunday because you are taking your child to church this Sunday morning at the local campus congregation. And so, we want our kids there. With the studies do show us that we lose our kids, unfortunately, in those college years. And we want to do everything that we can to encourage them to continue to go.
You've mentioned a lot of ways that parents are being brought into this. What other ways can church workers encourage parents in their raising up of their children to consider these church work vocations?
Again, I think I would say campus visits would be one. I get the emails. I'm familiar with both of our seminaries. Concordia St. Louis, has the Contemplate and the Vocatio visits. Those are great ways, and those would be good ways for parents and church workers to get those kids who have expressed an interest on campus, or maybe if they haven't expressed an interest, just, go to visit. Concordia Theological Seminary in Fort Wayne has the Christ Academy and the Phoebe School. Again, other good opportunities for our kids to, spend a good handful of days on our campuses to see, what the lectures look like, what future ministry might look like. And then I would also say this, I was on campus at Concordia Seward in February of this year, and we were told that weekend was a big campus visit weekend. And what was going on was just various alumni of Concordia Seward were packing up vans and bringing vanfuls of kids from their areas to Seward for campus visits that weekend. So, it wasn't necessarily a church worker visit, so to speak, but the alumni was excited about the university. They were excited the direction the university was headed, and they were getting people, on campus, visiting the campus, showing them, the worship life as well that happens on a daily basis at our CUS schools. And so I think our alumni are another important asset here too.
Great point. Great point. Set apart to serve. We've talked a little bit about the pilot program in this series. And tell us about how you hope the Kansas District will be a part of the pilot program.
Definitely. Our district, like so many other districts, represents a huge cross-section of of our population. In some areas of Kansas, we have communities that the high schools speak 27 different languages. We've got very remote places as well. We've got some of our places have one LCMS church per county. And in some of our places, you've got an LCMS church every 5 to 6 to 7 miles. So where we are at in Kansas, whether it be from rural to city to urban, we have the mission of the crucified and risen Christ to proclaim. And again, to stick with the theme of the royal priesthood, it is our job. It is our duty as the royal priesthood to proclaim the excellencies of him who has called us out of darkness into the marvelous light. So that's the consistent message that we're trying to get across here. It may seem like a simple message, but it's not just a pastor or a church worker that can encourage this. It can be a dedicated layperson who is actively involved in the church. The harvest is plentiful, the workers are few, and by God's grace through his Spirit, so we can reverse that trend.
So how can we encourage families in our congregation and church workers as well to encourage these young people? What are some opportunities across the broader synod for our youth to be considering church work and to really discern if church work is right for them?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, prayer would be one. And I think, too, maybe just the model that I used, that I was brought up with, there just has to be a greater emphasis from our churches to our families of family devotion. In the busyness of life, we need to sit down. We need to do devotions together. We need to pray together. We need to read the Bible together. And worship is not just 1 hour or 2 hours on Sunday. It's something that's a habit that is formed throughout the week. It's part of our daily vocation of what we do. And we let that Spirit work on us through that word throughout the week outside of the Sunday morning activities. So, there's so much that we could do. I think I'd take it back again just to what does it look like if just one person was to invite somebody to contemplate or consider what that church work vocation might look like, whether it be that pastor or that lay person, maybe the former alumnus of a CUS system, and we never know how the Holy Spirit's going to work, maybe immediately or maybe, down the road in a person's life for a church work career.
Our guest today, the Reverend Justin Panzer, president of the Kansas District of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. President Panzer, thank you so much for spending some time with us in the Set Apart to Serve series here on the Coffee Hour.
Thank you. It's been great to have you, and God's blessings to you.
You can learn more about the Set Apart to Serve series at lcms.org/SAS. You've been listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit kfuo.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@kfuo.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.